Anyone who believes we can solve this problem only with police measures is mistaken. Hashish is usually brought in through the beaches, not through the ports. At the port of Algeciras, what happens is the introduction of cocaine in containers from South America. We need to understand the situation in certain neighborhoods. Drug trafficking becomes the benefactor of the neighborhood. They sit down with Morocco to talk about immigration, fishing, tariffs, and the Sahara. Why don't they sit down with Morocco to talk about hashish?
Good morning from Algeciras, specifically from the port of Algeciras, currently the most important port in the entire Mediterranean. Today I want to learn a little more about this region, this city, and for that, it's inevitable that we touch on the topic of drug trafficking. I'm meeting with Paco Mena, president of the Antidrug coordinator in Campo de Gibraltar, who will share more details about the situation. Let's go. How many years have you been involved in this business, so to speak?
Well, almost 40 years now.
40 years?
40 years since the 1980s. Our associations were born in the Campo de Gibraltar around 1980, and mainly because of the serious situation that was happening here in the region as a result of heroin use.
Of heroin?
Of heroin. Yes, the Campo de Gibraltar was one of the places in Spain, along with Galicia, where the heroin pandemic caused a lot of damage. Thousands of young people from Campo de Gibraltar died from that consumption, or later from contracting acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
So, let's say there has been an evolution, at least regarding the origin and the present, because now heroin has disappeared. That lasted for 2 decades maybe, if I hurry, right? The late 80s, the 90s, and it was replaced thanks to tobacco smuggling. At first, and then the lines of what we have today were opened.
They have been two entirely different phenomena. The use of heroin was fundamentally a public health issue, which was fortunately resolved when the methadone programs were put into operation. But then smuggling of tobacco from Gibraltar appeared. At that time, Gibraltar still had its border closed with Spain, and tobacco started being brought in from Gibraltar. The organizations that brought tobacco from Gibraltar. At a certain point, they decided to make the business more profitable. If I have a structure in place, an infrastructure and logistics with a product like tobacco, and I can use that same logistical infrastructure for a product that gives me more profit, why not take advantage? Then they began bringing hashish from Morocco.
That's how it's been. How many decades have we lived this way? I assume it was gradual until the boom. Which decade was it, roughly?
The hashish trafficking in the Campo de Gibraltar, when did it reach its peak? In the 80s and 90s here in Campo de Gibraltar, we called it going down to the Moro. That is, they were people who were mules, smugglers. Those were the people who actually did it, who took the boat at the port, went to Morocco, to Ceuta, and smuggled hashish inside their bodies. That's where there was a significant jump in hashish trafficking in the Campo de Gibraltar. Basically, it all started after the United States occupied Afghanistan.
I understand.
Because when the United States occupied Afghanistan militarily, what they did was cut off the Taliban's sources of funding from hashish trafficking. From that moment on, Morocco positioned itself as the main supplier of hashish for the entire European Union and began to expand, in this case, its hectares of hashish cultivation. They start harvesting it using hashish in greater quantities but also of higher quality. That is, keep in mind, or we have to keep in mind, the hashish that was smoked in the 90s, the tetrahydrocannabinol it had. The tetrahydrocannabinol, which is one of the active ingredients it contains, usually didn't go above 30%. Nowadays, it's above 80%. Therefore, they are harvesting high-quality hashish and also several harvests per year, which didn't happen before. Logically, they have evolved, just as agriculture has. And then, when Morocco is already positioning itself, and then the tobacco trafficking organizations shift to transporting hashish to Campo de Gibraltar.
Let's say that's about 20, a little more than 20 years, 20, 30 years, right?
Yes, that's right, about 24 or 25 years.
And now, well, we're here so people can see us. The port of Algeciras.
The port of Algeciras, and there we have Gibraltar.
Exactly.
If we looked a bit more right, we could see Morocco.
Morocco, indeed. Which ones are from the Gibraltar area? The pressure has been increasing over these 25 years, but Algeciras has always been one of the hotspots, always a port of entry. Wouldn't you say, or is it the whole coast, or not?
Hashish is usually brought in through the beaches, not through the ports, not through the port of Algeciras. Cocaine arrives in containers from South America, while hashish is brought in by drug boats landing on the beaches. We have a large coastline since 4 of the 7 Campo de Gibraltar municipalities are ours. Here, La Linea, San Roque, Algeciras, and Tarifa have coastlines. These are very important and large beaches, and they are usually used to bring in hashish through the beaches with drug boats.
Which of the two substances causes more problems for the local population? The hashish smuggling, or the cocaine that comes in through the port?
Well, both the cocaine that comes in through the port, which has no connection with the organizations that traffic hashish in this case. They are completely different organizations. Neither of the two substances that come in through our coasts are for local consumption. The cocaine. It is looking for international markets, European, also the Asian part, and the consumption and trafficking of hashish is also targeting European markets, so all the hashish that comes in through the coasts of Campo de Gibraltar. What they are looking for are the European distribution centers, with the big organizations that control the sale of hashish in Europe. Therefore, here the trafficking really has nothing to do with consumption. If the hashish that comes in here is not consumed here, that hashish goes up to Europe or to the rest of Spain, and then it can come back down to be consumed here at retail. That's the reality. So that's the situation we have. What happens? Well, the logistics are already set up here. Here, there's a part of the population from humble neighborhoods who have seen drug trafficking as a way out of poverty. The municipalities of La Linea, Algeciras, and San Roque. And there they are, within that world, the trafficking of hashish, which obviously pays very well. You can make a lot of money, and the effort is minimal.
That's the problem these regions are facing right now, that it's much more attractive, especially for young people, since there are certain populated areas with youth unemployment over 60%. And that's what you try to spread awareness about through your association? That it's not just about police force, but also about doing important work in education and creating conditions that make it attractive for young people, not neglecting education and other types of jobs.
Exactly. Let's see. We already know the recipe of police pressure. It's been used in the Campo de Gibraltar for 30 years and clearly hasn't solved the problem. That is, the problem can't be solved just with police, nor by putting people in jail. Does it have to be done? Of course, because anyone who is profiting and endangering the health of potential consumers is obviously committing a crime against public health. If anyone thinks this problem can be solved only with police measures, they're mistaken. We, from our organizations, what we do is say, look, the principle of authority cannot be lost, it must be maintained. State security forces must be given enough resources. In this case, create tougher laws with harsher penalties for hashish trafficking. But there are also many other necessary actions. Drug trafficking feeds on unemployment, poverty, social exclusion, and lack of opportunities. And either we do something for the young people in those neighborhoods and for the families in those neighborhoods, or drug trafficking will keep recruiting them just like it has until now. That is to say, we have already lost 3 generations to drug trafficking. That's 3 now, so it's confirmed. Grandparents, parents, and children. If we don't solve this, we're going to lose the next generation. Therefore, what we developed is a document called the Comprehensive Plan for the Campo de Gibraltar, and that's the document. We try to make the different political parties and administrations understand what needs to be done. Because the easy thing is to allocate 30 million euros in the Special Security Plan, which within the general state budgets is practically, as I say, just a donation. Here, What needs to be done is to invest in infrastructure to strengthen and connect the Campo de Gibraltar. We need to invest in education, training, and employment policies to give young people choices. Careful, we know this won't solve the problem. Those with little moral character and few principles, who want easy, fast money, will remain. But there are many other young people who, if we give them the opportunity with that training, can find a regulated job, and in this case, legal employment. They'll pick that solution since currently they have no options.
I understand. And all these years that you say 3 generations have already been lost, what has gone wrong? I mean, because there were programs, there was education. Has it been purely a matter of opportunities and economy, or has it been a mix of factors?
Of course, the mix of factors. It's just that the money, easy and quick to get, is complicated.
Sorry to interrupt, but before the housing crisis, many young people were drawn to work in construction. They weren't tempted back then.
Exactly, yes.
So that economic setback has...
Indeed, we're going to see the period with the least activity in drug trafficking in the last 30 years, in the Gibraltar area. During the construction industry's economic boom, young people could easily find work. Even with little education, they could work as laborers and earn a decent salary by laying bricks or building walls. When the construction crisis hit, there was no work, and that's when drug trafficking began recruiting these young people. That's why we say that with the potential that the Campo de Gibraltar has, well, we have the most important port in the Mediterranean. After what we've seen, yes, it is the most important port in the Mediterranean. Until Tanger Med surpasses us, which, as they say, is practically already happening. Having that port with such potential, why don't we put in the necessary infrastructure so the port can keep growing and keep generating jobs? That is, if someone wants to come from Madrid to Campo de Gibraltar, they'll realize it's better to take a train through Malaga or Sevilla than directly from Madrid. So far, the train line in Campo de Gibraltar is more than a century old.
And it's still running on coal.
And the trains are still practically running on coal, so that has no future. In fact,
I've come to Malaga.
Of course, because of the AVE and also because the trains constantly break down. There are problems with the infrastructure and so on. That's one thing. And then there's another infrastructure that we think is very important, which is the widening of the National 340 between Algeciras and Tarifa. That is, the longest road in Spain is the National 340, which connects Cádiz with the Spanish border in Catalonia with France. The only section of that road that hasn't been widened is the Algeciras-Tarifa section. With the great potential that the beaches of Tarifa and the beaches of Barbate have to generate tourism, it's not just that, of course, we're going to generate tourism, and we're going to generate sustainable tourism. We don't want mass tourism or whirlwind tourism, but rather quality tourism, because we have the potential and we have the beaches, we have the climate. Therefore, what we advocate for is that the state commits, the government commits to this region, and the Junta de Andalucía, which are the two administrations that share responsibility between them. They should determine what each person is willing to do to solve our problem in Campo de Gibraltar.
Of course, that is indeed your position, which is that the junta and the central government should come to an agreement, not even to make investments, which you all have been asking for a long time now. You mentioned Barbate. Can we discuss it? Many people likely still have strong feelings about it. Just 2 months ago, 2 civil guards passed away.
Well, they were murdered. They
murdered 2 civil guards in the line of duty at the port of Barbate. And just a few days ago, another boat was run over again. So, of course, people are upset and say, but how can we not invest in tougher measures, more force, more prisons? Every time cases like these come to light again, which is not the first and unfortunately won't be the last, people keep demanding tougher measures. And in a way, it's because of the aggression these boatmen have been showing recently. No, because it wasn't like this before. Not before, maybe a decade or 2 ago. If they got caught, they would just leave everything on the beach and run away. Now they're willing to ram into them?
Well, because first, a new generation has joined drug trafficking, younger people, with less common sense and more aggressive.
Maybe less to lose?
Exactly, and also Because the organizations involved in hashish trafficking are not the owners of the hashish, they are surprisingly just transporters. So what happens? The owner of the hashish also pressures them, saying, you can't just get rid of the hashish easily, you have to protect it. So everything makes sense. Therefore, that's where we're finding that aggressiveness and resistance they put up. People get involved in hashish trafficking, they get arrested and the drugs are seized, but of course the body when a series of these kinds of things happen. What people are asking for is a tough approach, and we say we need to be tough, but we can't solve this just by being tough. And we repeat it again. Why? Because if we continue with the unemployment rates that certain neighborhoods in the Campo de Gibraltar have, drug trafficking will keep recruiting people, especially young people. Once you get into that world with the money you make, does anyone really decide to leave it? Therefore, the key is that people can choose between honest work or drug trafficking. Some will pick honest jobs while others will choose drug trafficking. But no one can say they didn't get a chance.
Exactly. So, in a way, society, the people of the town, can also turn their backs on those people, which is an important part. Many times, the people who support these illegal activities are the ones who...
We need to assess the situation in specific neighborhoods. Drug trafficking becomes the benefactor of the neighborhood. In poor neighborhoods, where there is poverty, where people can't afford to pay their electricity bill, and drug trafficking is the one who pays their electricity bill. Drug trafficking is the one that helps them eat, so logically, that's what we call narco-welfare. So in that neighborhood, since the state has disappeared from the neighborhood, in the end, it's drug trafficking that occupies that space. We can't allow that. The state must occupy that space through educational, training, employment, and infrastructure policies. Because the Campo de Gibraltar is an area with a lot of potential, we have, as I said, the most important port in the Mediterranean. We have the most important industrial park in Andalusia, If we strengthen the infrastructure, along with education, training, and employment, we will be able to bring drug trafficking at least to levels that are acceptable to society. We are not going to put an end to it for a simple reason. Morocco is just 20 minutes away by narco boat. There will always be people seeking quick and easy money.
And maybe I see it that way too. I'm speaking from my own ignorance, you can tell me, but that's how I see it. Morocco plays a key role here, especially now with the legalization they want to impose on many. We see this in countries like Canada.
Germany.
Holland is perhaps the most typical, but its style differs and isn't like a theme park. About the theme? Well, what I wanted to say is that, of course, if Morocco is so easy and it's going to produce more and more, that's also a diplomatic card that maybe the European Union has to play, not just Spain, because it affects all of Europe.
Exactly. Drug trafficking is stopped at the shores, both where narco boats depart and where they arrive. And we were at the European Union. We were in Brussels explaining things to the officials of the European Union there. Why doesn't Europe finally sit down with Morocco to talk about hashish trafficking? Europe sits down with Morocco to talk about immigration, fishing, tariffs, and the Sahara? Why doesn't it sit down with Morocco to talk about hashish? I mean, look, let's see why you have these plantations. And let's see how we can compensate so that Morocco, in some way, also makes more efforts than they do now. Why? Because of hashish? It's 15% of Morocco's gross domestic product. We can't just tell Morocco to give up that 15%. It's like if tomorrow they told us to get rid of tourism because tourism pollutes. If we want to seriously ask Morocco to make a greater effort, we will have to compensate them. They are already being compensated as the immigration police. They are being compensated for using their fishing grounds. They are being compensated. They are compensated by giving them tariffs, by removing tariffs, so they can bring their vegetables, their fruit, and all that to Europe. Well, then let's come to an agreement with Morocco and see what Morocco can do to compensate, so that they can also make a greater effort in that regard. Europe plays a key role there. What happens is that here, in the end, everyone looks the other way, and nobody really wants to intervene in a comprehensive way. Given drug trafficking's many complexities,
I understand. Well, and just to finish, I don't know if you want to add maybe something about the coordinator, about your organization, your alternative.
our organization often appears in the media due to drug trafficking. About hashish. That's actually what we spend the least amount of time on in our day-to-day work. Our job is to work in schools, with minors, to work outside in the neighborhoods, with young people, with teenagers, with children, helping them live healthy lives by working with them on habits, social skills, and more. That's our motivation and reason for existing. And then also, for those kids who have problems with drug use, helping them and their families try to get off drugs. That's the work we do every day, which we are very proud of and to which we are committed.
And how do you see it after almost 40 years? Can anyone truly be an expert on this? What do you think? No one can predict the future, but what's your view? From past, present to future? What is he expecting? We're really in a situation now where there's no turning back. If the fourth one falls, this is going to get stuck for a long time.
I'm usually an optimist by nature. And what we're trying to do is convince both administrations, the central government and the Junta of Andalusia, that they sit down at a table with institutional loyalty and that each one says what they're willing to do and what they're willing to contribute to solve this problem. And both, working together, have to go to Europe and tell Europe that the first barrier to keep your children from having easy access to hashish is here with us in Campo de Gibraltar, helping to make that barrier even stronger than it is now. And that's what we're going to keep fighting for and what we're going to keep insisting on to all the administrations with loyalty and by reaching out to them.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Paco.
Thank you, Victor. I appreciate your time. The channel is on YouTube.
And you've lived in Los Junquillos for a long time.
All my life.
All my life. I mean, you've probably seen it all, right? And how are things now? Maybe a bit calmer. That's good, right? Yeah?
You saw a line of workers. It's important.
Yes, that's it.
Everyone on television always highlights both the bad and the good from that line.
Yes, things do happen in Algeciras, or that in La Linea. Or in Campo de Gibraltar. Now what happens here? Yes, but not so much here.
I'm here for YouTube. I'm taking a walk, recording.
Not recording?
No, I'm not recording. You?
Look, it's showing.
It's this one here.
It's home.
It's beautiful.
Let's go.
Let's go.
If we had, the ceiling has fallen on me.
Come on, if I had money.
Money just like money.
But it almost killed me.
Don't tell me money.
The roof collapsed.
Didn't you just finish it?